Juan Pablo Aristizabal from Colombia in turn 5 is third on mediums. Best lap is a 1:16.466. Andres Camilo Cardona is sixth. "30 minutes remaining in the session. Juan Pablo Aristizabal in turn 3 is third. Juan Martin Acuna in turn 11 is P4. Carlos Huertas in Andretti hairpin is fifth. Juan Martin Acuna in turn 5 is P4. Best lap is a 1:17.552. Andres Camilo Cardona from Colombia in turn 10 is P6. Juan Martin Acuna in Andretti hairpin is P4. Juan Pablo Aristizabal in Rahal Straight is third. Carlos Huertas is fifth. Andres Camilo Cardona is P6. Jose Miguel Moncada from Colombia is P7 on softs. "25 minutes remaining in the session. Juan Martin Acuna is fourth. Carlos Huertas is fifth. Andres Camilo Cardona in turn 11 is sixth. Jose Miguel Moncada in turn 5 is P7. Juan Pablo Aristizabal in turn 6 is third. Andres Camilo Cardona in turn 6 is sixth. Jose Miguel Moncada in turn 6 is P7. Best lap is a 1:19.788. J.Enriquez from Colombia in turn 3 is P8 on mediums. Andres Camilo Cardona in the corkscrew is sixth. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is third. Best lap is a 1:16.369. Juan Martin Acuna is fourth. 20 minutes remaining in the session. J.Enriquez in Rahal Straight is PA. Jean-Pierre Ferrand in turn 6 is first. J.Enriquez is sixth. Best lap is a 1:18.884. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is second. Best lap is a 1:16.173. J.Enriquez in turn 11 is sixth. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is P1. Trujillo from Colombia is ninth on softs. Jean-Pierre Ferrand in turn 6 is first. Trujillo in Rahal Straight is P9. 15 minutes remaining in the session. Jean-Pierre Ferrand in turn 4 is P1. Ivan Trujillo is 9th on softs. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is first on softs. Carlos Huertas is 6th. Ivan Trujillo in Andretti hairpin is 9th. Carlos Huertas in Rahal Straight is 6th. Ivan Trujillo is P9. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is 2nd. Ivan Trujillo in Rahal Straight is P9. Juan Pablo Aristizabal in turn 4 is second. Carlos Huertas in turn 3 is sixth. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is P2. Carlos Huertas is sixth. Ivan Trujillo is P9. Best lap is a 1:22.755. Juan Pablo Aristizabal in turn 3 is second. Juan Martin Acuna in the corkscrew is P5. Stefan Trujillo in turn 4 is P9. Five minutes remaining in the session. Jean-Pierre Ferrand in turn 5 is P1 on mediums. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is P3. The qualification session is at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca in Monterrey, USA. The wind speed is 6 km/h from the south-southeast. Juan Pablo Aristizabal from Colombia is P1. Jean-Pierre Ferrand from Colombia in turn 4 is second. Santiago Idarraga from Spain in turn 6 is third on softs. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is 8th. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is up 15.71 in turn 4. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is up 17.02 in Rahal Straight. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is up 14.76 in turn 10. Juan Carlos Guerin from Colombia in turn 11 is 6th on mediums. Juan Pablo Aristizabal in Rahal Straight is 4th up 1.05. Carlos Huertas from Colombia in turn 4 is P2 up 0.52 on softs. Carlos Huertas is up 0.85 in the corkscrew. Carlos Huertas improved is second with a 1:17.141. 0.415 off pole. Juan Carlos Guerin from Colombia in turn 11 is 7th. 15 minutes remaining in the session. Juan Carlos Guerin improved is third with a 1:17.405. 0.679 off pole. J.Enriquez from Colombia is 4th on mediums. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is 9th. Juan Martin Acuna from Colombia in Rahal Straight is P6 up 0.50 on softs. Juan Martin Acuna improved is 5th with a 1:17.447. 0.780 off pole. Juan Carlos Guerin is 4th. Juan Carlos Guerin improved is 3rd with a 1:17.074. 0.407 off pole. Juan Pablo Aristizabal in turn 11 is 7th. Juan Pablo Aristizabal improved is P6 with a 1:17.454. 0.787 off pole. Santiago Idarraga in Rainy Curve is P2 up 0.35. Santiago Idarraga is provisional pole with a 1:16.650. Jose Miguel Moncada from Colombia is 8th up 0.31 on mediums. Jean-Pierre Ferrand in Rahal Straight is 2nd up 0.27. Jose Miguel Moncada from Colombia is P8. Jose Miguel Moncada improved is 8th with a 1:19.411. 2.761 off pole. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is P2. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is provisional pole with a 1:15.633. J.Enriquez in turn 11 is 7th. J.Enriquez improved is 7th with a 1:17.721. 2.088 off pole. Juan Martin Acuna in turn 6 is P5 on softs. Best lap is a 1:17.447. 1.814 off pole. J.Enriquez in turn 6 is P7 up 0.28. J.Enriquez improved is 5th with a 1:17.408. 1.775 off pole. 10 minutes remaining in the session. J.Enriquez is P1. Best lap is a 1:15.633. Juan Martin Acuna from Colombia in rainy curve is 6th. Santiago Idarraga in turn 3 is 2nd up 0.10. Juan Martin Acuna in Andretti hairpin is 6th. Juan Martin Acuna is up 0.40 in turn 5. Juan Martin Acuna is up 0.19 in rainy curve. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is 7th up 0.60. Juan Pablo Aristizabal improved is 2nd with a 1:16.527. 0.894 off pole. Announcer bot is active. The qualification session is at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca in Monterey, USA. The wind speed is 19 km/h from the south. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is P5. Carlos Huertas from Colombia in turn 3 is first up 0.24. Best lap is a 1:22.376. Jose Miguel Moncada from Colombia is fourth on softs. Carlos Huertas in rainy curve is first on softs. Santiago Idarraga from Spain in turn 3 is P2 up 0.13 on softs. Juan Pablo Aristizabal from Colombia in Andretti hairpin is sixth on softs. Five minutes remaining in the session. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is up 0.04 in turn 6. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is up 0.39 in turn 10. Juan Carlos Guerin from Colombia in turn 6 is sixth up 0.22 on mediums. Jose Miguel Moncada in turn 3 is P6 up 0.11. Juan Carlos Guerin in Andretti hairpin is 6th. Juan Carlos Guerin is up 0.40 in turn 5. Jose Miguel Moncada in the corkscrew is 5th up 0.80. Jose Miguel Moncada is up 0.01 in turn 4. Jose Miguel Moncada is up 0.21 in the corkscrew. J.Enriquez from Colombia in the corkscrew is second up 0.93 on mediums. J.Enriquez is provisional pole with a 1:17.175. Juan Carlos Guerin in turn 3 is P3 up 0.18. Juan Martin Acuna from Colombia in turn 3 is P4 on softs. Best lap is a 1:17.760. 1.509 off pole. The qualifying session is now in overtime. The race session is at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca in Monterrey, USA. The wind speed is 5 km/h from the south-southeast. Director entering the pits is P15. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is first. Race start. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is third. Santiago Idarraga from Spain in Andretti hairpin is third on softs. Juan Carlos Courin from Colombia is fifth on mediums. J.Enriquez from Colombia in turn 5 is sixth on mediums. Ivan Trujillo from Colombia in Rahal Straight is P8 on mediums. Juan Martin Acuna from Colombia in Rainy Curve is 9th on softs. Juan Martin Acuna passed Ivan Trujillo for 8th. Santiago Idarraga is third. Best lap is a 1:29.190. 3.396 off the fastest lap. Juan Carlos Courin from Colombia is fifth. 0.4 behind Carlos Huertas. J.Enriquez in turn 5 is P6, 0.5 behind Juan Carlos Courin. Juan Carlos Courin in the corkscrew is 5th. Best lap is a 1:31.166. 5.372 off the fastest lap. J.Enriquez is 6th, 0.2 behind Juan Carlos Courin. Juan Carlos Courin in turn 3 on lap 3 is 5th, 0.7 ahead of J.Enriquez. J.Enriquez in Rahal Straight is 6th, 0.7 behind Juan Carlos Courin. Juan Carlos Courin from Colombia in turn 10 is P5, 0.5 behind Carlos Huertas. Juan Pablo Aristizabal from Colombia is first on softs, 2.6 ahead of Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Jean-Pierre Ferrand was 0.7 faster last lap. Juan Carlos Guerin in turn 3 is P5, 0.3 behind Carlos Huertas. Juan Carlos Guerin is now P4. Juan Carlos Guerin lost P4 to J.Enriquez. Juan Carlos Guerin passed J.Enriquez for P4. J.Enriquez is P5. Jose Miguel Moncada from Colombia in rainy curve is 7th on softs, 0.6 behind Juan Martin Acuna. J.Enriquez in Andretti hairpin is P5 on mediums, 1.1 behind Juan Carlos Guerin. Jose Miguel Moncada in turn 4 is P7. Best lap is a 1:18.837. 1.952 off the fastest lap. Jose Miguel Moncada lost 7th to Carlos Huertas. Juan Martin Acuna in the corkscrew is P6 on softs, 3.5 behind J.Enriquez. Jean-Pierre Ferrand from Colombia in turn 3 is P2 on softs, 1.3 behind Juan Pablo Aristizabal. Juan Pablo Aristizabal in the corkscrew is first, 1.6 ahead of Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Jose Miguel Moncada in the corkscrew is 8th. Jean-Pierre Ferrand in turn 5 is P2, 1.3 behind Juan Pablo Aristizabal. Jose Miguel Moncada is 8th, 1.0 behind Juan Martin Acuna. Jean-Pierre Ferrand entering the pits is P2. Santiago Idarraga in rainy curve is P5. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is 5th on mediums, 0.1 behind Santiago Idarraga. Jose Miguel Moncada entering the pits is 8th. Jean-Pierre Ferrand exiting pits on mediums. Jean-Pierre Ferrand lost P5 to Carlos Huertas. Carlos Huertas from Colombia is P5 on softs, 1.3 behind Santiago Idarraga. Carlos Huertas was 16.7 faster last lap. Jose Miguel Moncada exiting pits on mediums. Jose Miguel Moncada in turn 3 is P9 on mediums. Carlos Huertas in Andretti hairpin is P5, 1.5 behind Santiago Idarraga. Juan Martin Acuna in turn 5 is 7th, 1.9 behind Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Juan Martin Acuna was 6.5 faster last lap. Jose Miguel Moncada in turn 4 is P9. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is P6 on mediums, 1.6 ahead of Juan Martin Acuna. Ivan Trujillo in Andretti hairpin is 8th on mediums, 3.9 ahead of Jose Miguel Moncada. Santiago Idarraga is 4th. Best lap is a 1:17.417. 0.532 off the fastest lap. Juan Carlos Guerin in the corkscrew is 2nd on mediums. Carlos Huertas is P5, 0.5 behind Santiago Idarraga. Santiago Idarraga entering the pits is 6th. Santiago Idarraga is 6th. Ivan Trujillo in Rahal Straight is P8, 3.1 ahead of Jose Miguel Moncada. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is 5th, 0.2 behind Carlos Huertas. Jean-Pierre Ferrand was 1.9 faster last lap. Santiago Idarraga exiting pits on mediums. Jean-Pierre Ferrand passed Carlos Huertas for P4. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is 2nd, 2.5 ahead of J.Enriquez. Juan Pablo Aristizabal entering the pits is P2. Jose Miguel Moncada in turn 3 is P9, 2.6 behind Ivan Trujillo. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is P5, 0.1 behind Carlos Huertas. Juan Pablo Aristizabal exiting pits on softs. Jose Miguel Moncada in the corkscrew is P9, 0.5 behind Ivan Trujillo. Juan Carlos Guerrero is P1. Santiago Idarraga in the corkscrew is P7 on mediums. Juan Martin Acuna entering the pits is P6. Juan Martin Acuna is P6. Ivan Trujillo in the corkscrew is 8th. Juan Martin Acuna exiting pits on mediums. Jose Miguel Moncada is P9. Carlos Huertas in the corkscrew is 5th. 2.9 behind Juan Pablo Aristizabal. Carlos Huertas entering the pits is P5. J.Enriquez in turn 5 is P2. Santiago Idarraga in turn 3 is 5th. Carlos Huertas exiting pits on mediums. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is 3rd. Ivan Trujillo is P9 on mediums. Jose Miguel Moncada from Colombia in turn 10 is 8th, 3.3 behind Carlos Huertas. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is 4th. In Rahal Straight is P8, 2.9 behind Carlos Huertas. Jose Miguel Moncada was 14.6 faster last lap. Ivan Trujillo in Rahal Straight is 9th. Jose Miguel Moncada in turn 4 is 8th on mediums, 1.1 behind Carlos Huertas. Ivan Trujillo is 9th. Ferrand is third, 4.8 ahead of Juan Pablo Aristizabal. Juan Martin Acuna is P6 on mediums. Carlos Huertas in rainy curve is P7 on mediums. Juan Pablo Aristizabal in Andretti hairpin on lap 20 is P4, 3.6 behind Jean-Pierre Ferrand. J.Enriquez in the corkscrew is P2. Juan Carlos Guerin entering the pits is first. J.Enriquez entering the pits is first. Juan Pablo Aristizabal in Rahal Straight is fourth, 3.4 behind Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Juan Carlos Guerin is first on mediums. Juan Carlos Guerin exiting pits on mediums. J.Enriquez exiting pits on mediums. Carlos Huertas in Andretti hairpin is P7, 4.0 ahead of Jose Miguel Moncada. Trujillo is ninth. Carlos Huertas in turn 11 is P7. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is third, 3.8 behind Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Juan Pablo Aristizabal was 0.8 faster last lap. Ivan Trujillo entering the pits is ninth. Santiago Idarraga is P4. Juan Carlos Guerin in turn 3 is P1. Ivan Trujillo exiting pits on softs. Ivan Trujillo is P9 on softs, 0.1 behind Jose Miguel Moncada. Juan Carlos Guerin in turn 10 is first. J.Enriquez in Andretti hairpin on lap 23 is 6th. Carlos Huertas is P7. Jean-Pierre Ferrand in turn 11 is P2. Ivan Trujillo from Colombia is 9th. Juan Martin Acuna is P5. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is P3. Juan Pablo Aristizabal entering the pits is P3. Carlos Huertas is P7 on mediums. Juan Pablo Aristizabal on lap 25 is P3 on mediums. Juan Pablo Aristizabal exiting pits on mediums. Santiago Idarraga is 4th on mediums, 2.9 behind Juan Pablo Aristizabal. Santiago Idarraga was 29.5 faster last lap. Juan Pablo Aristizabal in the corkscrew is third. Best lap is a 1:17.341. 0.456 off the fastest lap. J.Enriquez in Rahal Straight is 6th. Best lap is a 1:18.024. 1.139 off the fastest lap. Ivan Trujillo is P9, 0.4 behind Jose Miguel Moncada. Jean-Pierre Ferrand in Andretti Hairpin is P2. Ivan Trujillo entering the pits is P9. Carlos Huertas in turn 3 on lap 27 is P7. J.Enriquez in turn 11 is P6. Juan Carlos Guerin in turn 5 is P1. Santiago Idarraga is P4, 3.6 behind Juan Pablo Aristizabal. Juan Pablo Aristizabal was 0.6 faster last lap. J.Enriquez is 6th. Carlos Huertas on lap 29 is P7. Jose Miguel Moncada entering the pits is P8. Santiago Idarraga entering the pits is 4th. Santiago Idarraga is P4. Juan Carlos Guerin on lap 30 is first. Jean-Pierre Ferrand entering the pits is P2. Jose Miguel Moncada exiting pits. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is P2. Santiago Idarraga exiting pits. Carlos Huertas in rainy curve is 7th. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is P2. Jean-Pierre Ferrand exiting pits. Juan Pablo Aristizabal in Andretti hairpin on lap 31 is 3rd. Juan Carlos Guerin in turn 4 is P1. Carlos Huertas is 7th. Juan Carlos Guerin is P1. J.Enriquez in turn 3 is 5th, 3.7 ahead of Santiago Idarraga. Juan Martin Acuna in the corkscrew is 4th. Juan Carlos Guerin in turn 3 is 1st. J.Enriquez from Colombia is 5th, 3.4 ahead of Santiago Idarraga. Juan Carlos Guerin is P1. Jose Miguel Moncada in turn 11 is P8. Carlos Huertas entering the pits is 7th. Jean-Pierre Perrin in Andretti hairpin is P2. Juan Martin Acuna is 4th, 4.8 ahead of J.Enriquez. J.Enriquez was 2.0 faster last lap. Juan Martin Acuna entering the pits is P4. Carlos Huertas exiting pits on softs. Juan Carlos Guerin is 1st. Juan Martin Acuna is P6. Juan Martin Acuna exiting pits on softs. Jean-Pierre Perrin from Colombia in turn 4 is 2nd. Juan Pablo Aristizabal in turn 5 is 3rd. Juan Martin Acuna is P6 on softs. Juan Pablo Aristizabal in turn 3 is 3rd. J.Enriquez is 4th. Juan Martin Acuna is P6. Carlos Huertas from Colombia is P7. Juan Carlos Guerin in the corkscrew is P1. Juan Martin Acuna from Colombia is 6th. Carlos Huertas on lap 38 is P7. Juan Martin Acuna is P6. Santiago Idarraga in turn 10 is P5, 3.8 behind J.Enriquez. Juan Pablo Aristizabal in turn 6 is 3rd. Juan Carlos Guerin is 1st. Juan Carlos Guerin entering the pits is 1st. J.Enriquez in rainy curve is P4 on mediums, 3.4 ahead of Santiago Idarraga. Juan Carlos Guerin is 1st on softs. Juan Carlos Guerin exiting pits on softs. Jose Miguel Moncada is 8th. Juan Martin Acuna in turn 4 is 6th. Best lap is a 1:17.877. 0.992 off the fastest lap. J.Enriquez entering the pits is 4th. J.Enriquez is 4th. Santiago Idarraga is P4. J.Enriquez is 5th on softs. J.Enriquez exiting pits on softs. Turn 3 is P6, 0.6 behind J.Enriquez. Carlos Huertas in turn 5 is P7. Juan Martin Acuna in turn 10 is 6th, 0.9 behind J.Enriquez. Juan Carlos Guerin in the corkscrew is P1. Best lap is a 1:16.354. Santiago Idarraga in turn 11 is 4th on mediums. Carlos Huertas is P7. Santiago Idarraga from Spain in the corkscrew is P4. Jose Miguel Moncada is P8. J.Enriquez is P6. J.Enriquez entering the pits is 6th. Jean-Pierre Ferrand from Colombia is P2. J.Enriquez from Colombia is P6. J.Enriquez exiting pits on softs. Santiago Idarraga in Andretti hairpin is P4. Juan Martin Acuna in turn 11 is 5th. Jean-Pierre Ferrand in turn 5 is 2nd. J.Enriquez entering the pits is 6th. J.Enriquez on lap 45 is 6th. Jose Miguel Moncada is 8th. J.Enriquez is P6 on softs. J.Enriquez exiting pits on softs. Juan Martin Acuna from Colombia is 5th. J.Enriquez is 6th. Jean-Pierre Ferrand in turn 5 on lap 49 is 2nd. J.Enriquez is 6th. Carlos Huertas from Colombia in rainy curve is P7. Has just finished the race. Juan Carlos Guerin finished P1. Jose Miguel Moncada finished P8. Juan Pablo Aristizabal finished 3rd. Santiago Idarraga finished 4th. Ferrin finished 2nd. J.Enriquez finished P6.